Hello, everyone. My name is Kostas Papadopoulos. I'm an assistant professor in digital humanities and cultural studies at Master University. I'm part of the Ignite and dariah teams, and I have developed the course Remaking Material Culture in 3D, which is available to everyone via the dariah platform since last Monday. So in this brief presentation today, what I'm going to talk about is the development of the course. However, I want to briefly talk about the state of 3D making and cultural heritage, particularly 3D digitization, which is the focus of this course, situate the course within the COVID-19 era, explain the learning goals, the methods, the pedagogic principles of the course, outline the core themes, the topics covered, and also highlight the different ways that this course goes beyond a workshop or beyond a how-to style by placing emphasis on some core political topics and debates very much related to the digitization of cultural heritage. So in the last decade, we have experienced an increasing rate and amount of digitization, especially 3D digitization of cultural heritage. We have seen EU and nationally funded projects, special task forces, communities, and we have seen even big corporations like Google Arts and Culture embarking on the 3D digitization of cultural heritage. And I would say that this is understandable because there are increasing concerns that heritage is being gradually lost due to wars, illicit trading of antiquities, climate change, even mass tourism. I guess we can all recall, for example, the destruction of Palmyra a few years ago, or the explosion of the Buddhas in Afghanistan in the early 2000s. So at the same time, advances in tools and methods for 3D digitization, including the affordability of hardware and software, have in a way democratized the process of capturing, processing, and publishing three-dimensional material culture. We have laser scanners, we have new techniques and methods like photogrammetry, reflectance transformation imaging, 3D modeling, 3D printing, platforms for making 3D models accessible online. These have all been increasingly deployed in cultural heritage in an attempt to capture and make available more information than conventional capturing mechanisms that we have been using in this field, such as illustration, for example, or photography. And also, we have seen an increasing number of community-led projects in which local communities become familiar with their heritage by engaging in digitization processes. Also in recent years, large institutions, including, for example, the British Museum or the Smithsonian, have developed 3D digitization programs for the collections, have also made available and very often downloadable and therefore 3D printable many of their digitized objects, and many other institutions have followed this changing paradigm, therefore seeing an increasing number of heritage artifacts becoming available to a much broader audience than before. And this has been currently amplified due to the closures of heritage sites and museums, with an increasing number of institutions offering virtual access to their collections, often in the form of virtual tours like Google Street View, which in many cases, of course, have been quite problematic and not very successfully implemented, as virtual visitors cannot access any information about objects or their context, but it's beyond the scope of this presentation to further talk about that. There have been reports that ask for investment in digital cultural heritage. One was published a month ago from the Network of European Museum Organizations, which called for more investment in digital heritage, including both digital services as well as engaging digital experiences. So such broad implementation of 3D digitization and modeling has already started transforming heritage practice, but also posing a series of epistemological and ethical issues, such as the social value in relation to the democratization of production, transparency, authenticity, biases, subjectivities, technological authority, ownership, and copyright. So despite the many gains that 3D digitization provides, such as the fact that objects go out of the museum, we can study inaccessible objects, we can handle the objects, and so forth. At the same time, we are faced with very challenging questions like, will these digital files we're producing be always accessible? Who owns the digital data produced? Are the 3D models of sufficient quality? Do they follow any standards, and so on and so forth? So the course is trying to deal with all these facets of 3D digitization by providing participants with the skills and competencies to digitize material culture using different methods, but most importantly, making them aware of all the underlying challenges, controversies, and debates. In my view, it is critical for us to know what tools we should use, when we should use them, and if we really need to use them, while being able to reflect on our practice and products. And we should not underestimate that 3D models have their own biographies. They need to be described, they need to be contextualized, while making transparent their process of their creation, including technical and human choices. So by the end of this course, participants will be familiar with a range of 3D digitization techniques. They will know the pros and cons of each one. They will know when to choose one over another. They will also be able to apply state-of-the-art techniques, critically evaluate 3D digitization projects, and most importantly, develop their own projects from start to finish. So to achieve that, its lesson includes different forms, different modalities, text and multimedia, interactive exercises, quizzes, explanatory videos with voiceover, step-by-step tutorials. There are also many, many moments of reflection where participants are asked to reflect on particular examples and apply some principles to different case studies. And I'll say a few more things about that in a while. And we particularly are using, as Marianne said, case studies and scenarios in all Ignite courses that in a way meld theory and practice, and in a way enable learners to delve into various real world situations and position the skills and knowledge acquired into different contexts. So the course is divided into 4 units, and I will very briefly say a few things about each unit. So unit 1 deals with a definition of cultural heritage. It's more introductory. It problematizes the term and also places some emphasis on the usually neglected intangible cultural heritage. The other thing that the unit does, and I'll get back to that a bit later, is that it introduces the politics of heritage, because I think it's critical to remember that heritage and politics are inextricably woven, and the same happens with digital and 3D heritage. Unit 2 delves into 3 methods of 3D capturing, specifically 3D scanning, computed tomography, and multi or hyperspectral scanning. All 3 lessons within the units are structured in the same way, with an introduction to the method, often a historical overview starting with the invention, the development of the method, its application in different fields, their uses specifically in cultural heritage, including limitations, of course, and finishing with a case study, which is a real example where the method was applied. And there's always an exercise that participants are asked to complete based on these case studies. Unit 3 is about computational imaging, which is an umbrella term that describes methods that have digital photography as their basis. The unit focuses on 2 computational imaging methods, reflectance transformation imaging and photogrammetry. These are presented in quite detail with several PowerPoint presentations, voiceover, how-to and best practice, many examples from cultural heritage and beyond, and so forth. So after taking these lessons, users should be comfortable in utilizing these methods themselves. And the last unit, Unit 4, deals with one particular method, structure from motion, which is the method that has been extensively utilized in the last few years by individuals, projects, and institutions to produce 3D models out of digital images. So the unit deals with the whole workflow of digitization, starting with the physical, so how to capture it, how to process it, in order to produce 3D models, where and how to publish these models online, and also closing the cycle with 3D printing, therefore going from the physical to the digital and back to the physical. And also, as well, it includes many exercises where users are asked to evaluate pre-recorded data sets. There are also many data sets available that participants can use before actually embarking on their own projects. So one thing that I want to highlight is that 3D digitization is often taught as skills. But one thing we often neglect is that digitization is a political act, the same way that heritage is very much about politics. What we digitize and how, where we publish it, how we present it, and so forth. All these actions create certain narratives about the objects, the communities, the people in the societies in very specific ways. So all of us working on 3D, and especially those who are new to the field, I think we need to become sensitive to the politics of digital heritage and understand that choices and decisions are political acts and highly influence this translation of a physical object into a digital one. So this course includes lots of how-to and step-by-step tutorials. However, all methods are complemented by case studies that actually raise these issues. And before closing the presentation, I'll just show you 3 examples that exemplify this. So on the politics of 3D digitization, one of the case studies is the so-called Nefertiti hack that became viral a few years ago when 2 German artists scanned the head of Nefertiti without the permission of the museum in Berlin and released the file under a Creative Commons license in an attempt to make a statement about colonial structures and cultural heritage and the looting of heritage artifacts from the global south. Maybe we'll remember the very controversial remaking of the Triumphal Art of Palmyra that was unveiled 4 years ago in London, in Trafalgar Square, in front of the National Gallery. So through this and some other similar case studies, participants are asked to reflect on the political motives behind the 3D printing of the Palmyra arts, but also on the ethics of reproducing heritage by digital means, and also if Palmyra and also other similar cultural heritage sites should actually be rebuilt or be digitally rebuilt. And the last one is about ethics, in particular about human remains. And I chose that subject since there have been fierce debates about how do we study and present human remains, how do we show them to the public, and because digital technologies have been increasingly used to study and present human remains, I want to make users, participants a bit more sensitive by drawing from case studies such as an exhibition in the British Museum a few years ago on mummified bodies, or O.J. the Iceman, and have them reflect on researchers' responsibilities. How does the application of digital technologies amplify or diminish these sensitive issues? How potential communities, stakeholders could react, how we could mitigate these reactions, and so on and so forth. So the course is available on the dariah platform. Feedback is always welcome, and if you use it in your teaching or learning, we would of course like to hear about your experience. Thank you very much.